Hi, everyone. I'm Jim McDonough, the Executive Director of Headstrong, a national facing mental health treatment practice of choice for our nation's military connected members and their families. Welcome to Meeting of the Minds. This installment, I'm speaking with Dr. Eva Fattorini, an expert in the area of creative expression and creative art as it applies to healing, and in our case, healing the hidden wounds of war. Eva, welcome to Meeting of the Minds.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, Honor. And I'm a medical doctor by training. I was born and raised in Croatia, which gave me perspective on different healthcares around the world. Because from Croatia, I moved to United States. From United States, I moved to Abu Dhabi, I had a role in my life as a doctor, as an administrator, but also as a patient on three different continents, and I experienced different approaches to healthcare. And I think one thing that is common is that is missing is humanities and more empathy in healthcare, which again is something that we can compensate by bringing arts and creativity and infusing the healthcare with energy of the arts. So that's why I devoted my career to the intersection of arts and health.
Thank you, Eva. So let's get underway with our discussion. I'm familiar with the breakup of the former Yugoslavia and your formative years growing up in Croatia. It was a war torn society. And you and I have talked a little bit in the past about your experiences growing up, the nature of post traumatic stress. Could you do me a favor and kind of walk our viewers through what it was like to grow up in war torn Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslavia? Because there are a lot of parallels associated with your life and then what we do for a living, taking care of people like you and I who've experienced the trauma of war. So, could you talk a little bit about your upbringing? I know you're the child of a pediatrician, and so I get a sense of where your medical interests lie. But could you please tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up?
I don't know. I mean, thank you for this question. It's a big question, and I will try to simplify it. It's true, I was born in Yugoslavia, and when you are in certain setup, you don't know for anything else. So it was officially a communistic country. But my parents are lovely people. I grew up as a happy child with limitations that I was not aware of. You become aware of limitations once you try a different worlds. Um, and we were very focused on education. We were very limited in choices in a way of there were not so many creative outlets. And what I think I remember now is continuous suppression of emotions and freedom of speech, which is very characteristic. And I think it builds up. You can't suppress human emotions, it's impossible. And I think very often, exactly in those parts of the world where people are or governments are trying to suppress people, that's where creativity goes out under big pressure. And usually you get wonderful artists or music or poetry created in these moments. Um, the Balkan Wars, or the war that happened in 1990s, I was a medical student at that point, and quite honestly, I think I shared it with you. It's interesting. I don't really remember all the details. I guess that's what stress does, and I have to say, what I've been through is nothing compared to what other people in that part of the world went through, including soldiers, and what I became aware what many people in the world are going through as we speak right now. And when I say people, I mean like human beings, no matter which role they play in this situation of war. And then I remembered at one point, if somebody was to ask me how long did it last, the war, I have no idea. Like my memory was all blended. Only later in history you can look at the dates and the years. But what I do remember, what is connected to what I decided to do later, is the healing process, which we all find if you don't have professional access to professional care. We all try to find the ways how to heal our soul, most wounded part of us in these situations. And I found my way through creativity, and I think that's one of the best ways how we can heal ourselves from inside out.
When did you first understand you were dealing with post-traumatic stress throughout the course of those experiences? When is there a memory in your mind when you knew that that's what this was you were dealing with?
Yeah, I think it started later because it's fight or flight when you are in the middle of the stress. You don't really have time. The brain is off for cognitive functions and sensory functions, and I was never in a situation that I was directly on a front line exposed to the combat. But I do remember every time that we were supposed to have a lesson. I was on a fourth year medical school, and then the air raid would go on, and the windows were covered, and this fear, continuous fear, and then running to the basement, running to the shelters. At one point, didn't know where my parents were, just witnessing their every single day, and then it becomes your everyday reality. Then only after the war, I realized that certain music that was playing on TV all the time would remind me instantly on um, this whatever stress we were going through, not even recognizing, because the TV usually during the war always plays the same music, same time, and showing the same images. And then only years later, quite honestly, like many years later, I realized I cannot watch war movies or anything real. I can't hear certain music. I get goosebumps and I start crying most of the
Yeah.
time.
It's interesting because music, as an expression of creativity, um, was something of a trigger for you as you reflect upon it. I take it. Yeah. Yeah. So the ability to heal from within. How did you take steps to heal yourself and deal with the memories of growing up in that environment? What was your healing journey like personally, and how did you get here through those very difficult times?
Um, well, I have to say that if somebody in Croatia is or from Yugoslavia or Bosnia and Herzegovina who in that part of the world listening to me, they probably, because what does she know? She was not as affected as maybe some other people. And then on the other side, you realize, as I said, then you leave that part of the world and you realize the rest of the world has no clue what's going on there.
Yeah.
And then opposite, so it's everything is very relative. That's what I'm trying to say. I think I was trying to keep perspective, and trying to trying not to say to myself there was always worse, but in a way I was trying to focus on gratitude. I was trying to build resilience. I was trying to be grateful for everything I have. I also, I think, trying to find a deep purpose. And what I was saying to myself, I learned so much, and the world and the life that is ahead of me, I'm here for the reason. I'm here for, I went through all this because there is a purpose, and I'm not going to waste my life now doing meaningless things. This even the fact that I'm alive has a purpose. So that kept me going. I just saw the light, and also what I learned in the war, there is a beauty. I was not in the war at all, but it's kind of, you need to train yourself to extract the beauty even from the ugliest situations, and to believe in that beauty, to see the nature that you're in, to see the good in people, to see the smile on their faces. Anyway, how people care for each other. Anything that you can hold on to
Mm.
that is going to take you through whatever difficult period you're in that moment.
There's some interesting parallels here to the life of a service member in the American Armed Forces. And it's often said that many establish their identity in life through that experience in military service. That's part of this tribe that I belong to, that there was the establishment of this identity in service. And one of the more interesting aspects of transition from the American armed forces is this loss of identity, loss of purpose when rejoining civilian society. And there's been a lot written about the sense of tribe and the respect that comes from within a tribe. And then you leave the tribe and you find yourself in this strange world where your identity that you knew was stripped away, and you struggle with um, this desire to find new purpose and new identity. And so there's this parallel with your life, with my life, and that purpose and identity, once found again, in some cases, is the driver of the meaning of the purpose of your life. This defines you, and I think my role, your role, we find great purpose in helping others. We do it a little bit differently, and I'll segue now to the notion of creative art. And as a former nonprofit chief executive of an organization that believed inherently in the value that creativity and expression and art bring to renewing purpose and reestablishing identity in life, this is where we're joined. I think sympathetically and with everything else. I think we find ourselves grabbing onto this sense that creativity can bring about life, can bring about identity, can bring about purpose. Can you talk to our viewers for a second, or just speak with them about this notion that how you use creative art to heal? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Um, I have to say that how I used it was very intrinsic because I love arts, and to me it was always a form of expression. How it is going to be used professionally, I didn't know until I came across a profession called art therapy.
Yeah.
And as a medical doctor, I was actually surprised that nobody ever taught us throughout our journey to become doctors how to address human emotions in a in a professional way, not being a psychologist, a psychiatrist, prescribing medications, but actually how do you use creativity to address human emotions? So I learned that, and I'm still learning from the professions called creative arts therapists. It is a form of psychotherapy, and
Mhm.
I'll try to simplify it. I mean, first of all, I have to please forgive me, all the art therapists in the world, if I say something wrong, because I'm not art therapist. Please forgive me. I'm not learning every day. All I know and how to explain it to your audience is it's like having a third thing. It's like ability, all our emotions, deep emotions, because of the moments where we shift to from cognitive functions to kind of fight or flight mode. For some reason, the memories, because the PTSD is a fear conditioned memory, basically, it falls to the place, sensory place. That's how we remember it, but we can't reach it. We can't verbalize it. Actually, it's very difficult to verbalize it. So what creativity does, it actually activates different areas of the brain, and it helps us reach to this region, whether it's hippocampus, it doesn't matter how it's called, but it helps us bypass this kind of verbal obstacles and enables us to tell the story, liberate ourselves, and augments our expression, and gives us something else to create a story around a thing, to externalize our emotions through creativity. It can be a mask, as you know. There are a lot of soldiers, wounded soldiers, who created masks. It can be
Yep.
music, it can be poetry, anything that we can externalize and put it out of our body into object, into something that we can see, that we can feel, that we can, and then in that way you almost kind of get it out of your system in your own creative way, the way you want to do it, and then you can work around that, and that's where you start telling the story. And art therapists are helping you. So it is a form of psychotherapy that is using um, creativity to help us externalize our emotions, which are very deep. And
Yeah.
creativity allows us to go fast and deep. And therefore, it saves time
Mhm.
because it takes so much time, and it's so hard to verbalize I'm depressed or I'm anxious. I mean, how are you going to do that? But if somebody asks you to, like if this is the paper, and if somebody's asked you, this is one line and this is another line, which one you can relate to more. I mean, this is so simple. If somebody's anxious, this is, this is what they will
Yeah.
feel like. And imagine using the colors, using the shape, using the sounds. So, completely underutilized power that each of us has, which is given to us, that needs a guidance, professional guidance, and it will empower us long term to cope with difficulties, emotional difficulties that we might all have. That's what creative arts therapy is doing.
Yeah, I witnessed it firsthand, working with several creative art therapists in my nonprofit experience. And I was skeptical at the beginning at the ability to find expression come forward through art. And if there's one thing I can attest to, it's within people like me is just this inherent sense of holding on to everything, appearing to be tough, and really our expression in terms of military service is the ability to lead others. That's how we express ourselves, or how we are a follower one day and a leader another based on the circumstance. And so our world of expression is somewhat limited in military service. I think the ethos of military service is one where we safeguard our emotions. We are always in control of our emotions, no matter the circumstance, because the appearance of leadership is strength and resilience, and not expressive behavior. In other words, emotion. In many ways, when we do share emotion, it's very private, and it's usually amongst a close knit group of our fellow soldiers, our colleagues, our comrades. It's about the only exposure the average soldier is going to see is this creative expression of an emotion come out in the context of being around their battle buddies, and everyone else is locked out of that world. But I was able to see how art therapy is used to get people to express what's going on inside, and it it begins that process of healing and reconciliation with what's occurring within you I've actually witnessed. And I must say that what started as skepticism is deep embrace now, because I saw the results on human beings. And it's this thing. I think it's an adage. It's overused, but different strokes for different folks. If it works for some people and doesn't work for others, I think that's the beauty of the pattern of mental health and mental wellness and mental resilience. There's a slew of things that might work for people. And it's interesting you said, because when you were trained to be a medical professional, the fact that you weren't taught to teach patients how to express themselves or how to emote, it's one of those things. Where did we go wrong? How did we not understand that training doctors and training physicians has to involve getting people to express what's wrong with them?
That's such a good question. What is the mathematics of emotions?
Yeah.
What is the metrics of emotions? Is it, and how many testimonials do we need to actually accept that as a fact? I think for what you're saying, we all are looking for alternative narrative, how to say the same story in a different way. And in creative expression, if it's art therapy, visual art expression, then it's a kind of visual narrative. It's visual metaphors that we are using. Our brain functions in images. So actually, we don't really remember words, we remember images. So the journey from images
Mm.
that we remember, right? Or anything sensorial, um, we actually use a lot of energy to try to find words. And sometimes there are memories or experiences that there are no words for that, but it has to go out. And that's again where creativity comes in, whatever way we want it. But it has
Yeah.
to come out of our body, as I explained. Um, what I also understood speaking to multiple colleagues, when you mention arts or creativity, a lot of people say, I'm not creative. This is not for me.
Yeah.
And that's usually the obstacles. I think the first way to approach people who are would like to experience creative expression is to explain it has nothing to do with skills, artistic skills. Everybody is creative. It's really about externalizing something. If you can draw the
Mm.
line on a paper like I did before, that's enough to start the nonverbal communication.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about where you're headed with your work. You formed this entity called Artisine. Can you
Yes.
describe to viewers what Artisine is and what you're trying to do as an extension of your medical training and your passion for the creativity associated with art?
Artisane Digital is a company, a software as a service company that is building or it's built a platform that connects creative art therapists with users globally. And what we are doing, we integrated encrypted video calls with various digital art tools, safe data storage, and we have a scheduling system. So we are in a pilot phase now. We are piloting that, and we are hoping by the end of this year we're going to launch the program or beginning of 2021.
And the goal being to connect people's needs with therapists through the medium of creative art, to get them to
Correct.
express what's going on and begin healing, right?
Yes, exactly. And as if we forgot that we live in the midst of pandemic
Yeah.
still. So the world of telehealth, the world that is being used now very often, is something that I see as improving, as a tool to improve the access. So even
Hmm.
before pandemic, I started building Artisan platform before the pandemic because I realized that art therapy or creative expression is not accessible to everyone in the world. And to go physically to meet art therapists, it's not something everybody can do. So I was trying to build this to improve the access, A, and B, to bridge the gaps in healthcare that we provide. And those gaps also are not being able to address emotions in appropriate way. And not because people don't want that. It's not because doctors don't want it or nurses don't want it or caregivers don't. It's because they don't have time to do it because they're overwhelmed. So the point is to mobilize creativity, to mobilize the global creativity, and allow those who have the creative power, are trained to be creatives, to offer that, train them, and to offer them as a service to those who need to participate in this process. So I'm talking about now another thing that Artisan is going to do. One is to engage art therapists that are board certified professionals, art psychotherapists. Again, it's a form of psychotherapy.
Mm.
But also, we are really looking forward to engage creatives around the world who can just be like artists in residence, who can be present for users and be almost like listeners or be present to share what they're doing with those who also would like to express how creative they can be.
That's fantastic. It's the pandemic has accelerated a great deal of innovation in healthcare, probably none more than in the delivery of mental health and telemental health. And this is just yet another innovative way of opening up access to the point you've made, access being um, the most important, barrier to be broken so that we can attract people into these various treatment approaches. And it's just important to remind viewers that creative art therapy is a form of evidence-based psychotherapy. This is proven to work in population health. And so I respect what you're trying to do with Artisine. I respect the work that you've accomplished a great deal. And for our viewers, this has just been a chance to take a peek inside the world of creative art therapy, creative expression, joined with a bit of innovation that Eva is bringing to the marketplace. And so here at Headstrong, we're always trying to introduce areas of interest that bring people to talk about mental health and treatment and wellness, and this focus that is so badly needed around the globe today around getting people access to care and closing or bridging the gaps. As you say, we talk about closing health inequity through approaches such as this, and we're big fans. So I'd like to thank you for joining me today, Eva, Dr. Fattorini. It's been a pleasure to speak with you again. For our viewers, Eva is joining us from London, where it is the evening.
Oxford.
Yeah, and so we're pleased to have you reach across the pond and join us and educate our viewers a bit on yet another bit of innovation occurring in the delivery of mental health. So, Eva, the final word is yours. So, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor and pleasure to address your audience, and I look forward to something we can do together.
As do I. And thank you, everybody, for catching this edition of Meeting of the Minds. Be on the lookout for future editions with other innovators like Dr. Fattorini. And my thanks for checking in with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.